This year, as part of Doors Open Day, Culture Perth and Kinross are delighted to take you on a trip behind the scenes at the Perth and Kinross Archives. Join Assistant Archivist Sarah Wilcock in this special recording produced exclusively for Doors Open Day.
Hello and welcome to Perth and Kinross Archive, home to many of the historic records of Perthshire and Kinrossshire. Since 1978, we have been providing access to these unique and important records to visitors from all across the world. We facilitate research in family, local, social and house history, as well as academic research and inquiries into the practices and decisions of local government. You can find us on the first floor of the A.K. Bell Library in Perth. Just turn left at the top of the stairs. My name is Sarah and I'm the Assistant Archivist here in the archive. Today I'm going to tell you a bit more about the service that we provide and give you a sneak peek behind the scenes to let you see what it's all about. So come on in. Here in our dedicated archive search room, visitors can gain access to the records that we hold. Now, while we may be based in a library, we do work very differently. One of the major differences is that there's no scope for browsing our collections on the shelves. Most people who come to visit us already know which records they want to consult, and we simply need to retrieve them from our storage for them. Now, we take the protection and preservation of our collections very seriously. Around 90% of our collections are original, one-of-a-kind documents, and once damaged or lost, they are gone forever, along with the knowledge and evidence that they provide. In order to ensure the security of our records, we do ask all of our visitors to follow some very simple guidelines, and you can find all of these guidelines on the Culture Perth and Kinross website. So, if you can't browse the shelves, how do you know exactly what it is that you want to see? Well, there are two ways that you can do this. The first is our online catalogue. Over the years, our staff and volunteers have worked hard to catalogue our collections and upload them into our online database so that with a simple keyword search, you can discover what in our collections is most relevant to you. For each entry, you will find the title of the collection, series, file or item, a short description of what it contains, covering dates, the language that it's written in, and the format that it takes, whether it's a volume, manuscript, photograph, digital file, etc. We also make every effort to provide as much information on the creation and creators of the records through administrative and biographical histories. Now, when it comes to archives, understanding the provenance of a collection can be just as important as the information the record provides us with. How can we truly trust a record if we don't know who or where it's come from? But the most important thing that you will find on the catalogue entry is the reference number. Every document in our collection is given its own unique reference code, which allows staff to locate it in the strong room. So if you are coming to consult records, we need to know the reference numbers of all of the documents that you want to see so that we can retrieve them for you. The second way to find out what we hold is to simply ask. Our archive team have a very good working knowledge of the collections here, and while we don't know everything that we hold, we can often point you in the right direction. You'll find our contact information on the Culture Perth and Kinross website, alongside some very helpful and handy source guides to the collections as well. One of the benefits to being located in the library is our proximity to the Local and Family History Department. Our two departments work very closely together to provide visitors and inquirers with as much access to the historical information relating to Perth and Kinross. The Local and Family History Department holds old parish registers and census returns alongside local newspapers dating back to 1809. This includes the Perthshire Advertiser and the Dundee Courier. It also holds a collection of local maps, photographs, publications and pamphlets, as well as a special collection of rare books and manuscripts. Here in the archive search room, we have the valuation rolls, electoral rolls and abridgments of seizines for the county. These are of particular benefit to house historians, but can also be of value to family and local historians as well. So now that we've seen the search room, let's go behind the scenes into the archive storeroom to see exactly what Perth and Kinross Archive actually is. One of the first things that people often notice when they come into the strong room is the temperature. For preservation reasons, we keep this room at around about 15 degrees Celsius with a 47% humidity. The second thing that they notice is often the smell coming off of the old leather volumes. We have to understand that we're dealing with biological materials that are slowly degrading over time. Now, while we can't stop this completely, we do have preservation measures in place to help prevent it. But it really does smell old in here, and with good reason, as our collections are over 800 years old. Our storage room is built over 2 floors with around 1.2 miles of shelving to house all of the records. We estimate that we hold around 2 million records here, and this number grows annually as we take in more and more deposits. So this gives you a really good idea of why the reference number is so important. Perth and Kinross Archive is what's known as a local authority archive, and this means that the archive is home to the historic records of Perth and Kinross Council and its predecessors, including town, borough, county, district and regional councils. The oldest collection of council records that we hold are the Perth Borough records, and these date from around 1205. In this collection you will find documents relating to the establishment of Perth as a royal borough, along with all the rights and privileges that this entailed. One of the most important documents in the Perth Borough collection is the Royal Borough Charter of 1210. Here in the archive we hold a 14th century copy, and it was granted by William, King of Scots. We often refer to it as the William the Lion Charter, and it sets out the terms of trade within the borough to ensure that William receives all the tax money due to him. The County Council collection is of great benefit to family and local historians. This collection holds the parish and parochial records for all of the counties in Perth and Kinross. They begin in 1845 and run through to 1930. Along with information on the administration of each county, they also hold a lot of information relating to poor relief and to local paupers within each parish. This collection also houses school records for Perth and Kinross schools, and this includes admission records and school logbooks. Now, we don't just collect the historic records of the council, we also collect private and community collections created by the people of Perth and Kinross. These are deposited or gifted to us by private individuals, businesses or organisations. These collections mainly consist of estate papers, business papers, the records of societies and organisations, the private records of families and individuals. Within these collections you'll find records relating to the Kinnairds of Rossie Priory, the Thriplins of Fingask, the Monroe Society Archive, various records of Scottish Women's Rural Institutes and Young Farmers Clubs. We also hold records for the McEwens of Perth and the Tailors Incorporation of Perth. And right behind me are the archive of Perth Theatre. Within these collections you'll find a variety of different types of records, including diaries, scrapbooks, photographs, ledgers, accounts, correspondence, legal papers and maps. There are very few restrictions to accessing the records within our care. It's a common myth that once something goes into an archive, it's locked away and nobody can see it, which is simply not true. The only reason that we wouldn't be able to provide access to a record is if it was covered by data protection regulations, or if the document was too damaged or too fragile to touch. Now that we've had a look around the strong room, let's go back to the search room and have a look at some of our archival treasures. All of the records in our collections are special in their own way, but some stand out for a variety of different reasons. We've already had a look at the William the Lion Charter, but here we have another charter granted by William, this time to a knight called Radulf Rufus, giving him the lands of Kinnaird in the Carse of Gowrie. This charter dates from around 1172 and is the oldest item in our collection. It is written in Latin on vellum, and affixed at the bottom with silk is the Great Seal of William, King of Scots. Although the majority of the seal is damaged, we can still make out the king riding his horse on one side. From a medieval charter to a modern day one, this is the letters patent of Elizabeth II, returning Perth to the status of a city, which it lost through a government restructure in 1975. It was presented as part of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012. This time it is written in English, but just like the 12th century charter, it has been written on vellum, and the Queen's Great Seal is attached. The seal was made at the National Records of Scotland by conservator Hazel de Vere, and she used the traditional beeswax and resin to create it, which is why it has a lovely honey scent. Here we have the Auchterarder burning document of 1781. This fascinating document gives an account of the losses sustained by householders in Auchterarder and neighbouring villages following the burning of their properties by the Jacobite army after the rebellion of 1715. It lists the claimants or their descendants from each village with a note of the sums claimed and received. Each claimant's signature is given at the end of the document in acknowledgement of their claims having been settled. Following the Battle of Sheriff Muir on the 13th of November 1715, Jacobite troops scoured the surrounding countryside for food, fuel and other supplies, leaving the area with few resources over a hard winter. By January 1716, the Jacobite army retreated north, and in order to leave nothing for the approaching government troops, they implemented a scorched earth policy between Stirling and Perth, burning buildings, grain, forage and taking food, blankets and clothing from local people. John Smeaton is often regarded as the father of civil engineering. He designed bridges, canals, harbours and lighthouses across Britain. Perth Bridge, or Smeaton's Bridge as it is locally known, is considered to be one of his finest achievements. This wasn't the first bridge built across the River Tay at Perth, but previous bridges had been unable to withstand the floodwaters of the river, and the last one had been washed away in 1621. Smeaton's Bridge was put to the test early in 1773 when large sheets of ice from further upriver broke free and dammed the Tay at the bridge. This forced the water into the town, causing much damage, but Perth Bridge, for the first time, held and is still in use today. Here we have a plan and elevation for the south front of the bridge, drawn up around 1765. One of my favourite items comes from the Perthshire and Kinrossshire Constabulary collection. It is a register of criminals that have been released from Perth Prison dated 1875 to 1906. This register provides a wealth of information on the individuals recorded, including their names, ages, place of residence, the crime they were convicted of, and the length of their sentence. Towards the back of the book, it provides even more description for each criminal, describing their features such as eye and hair colour, their height, any distinguishing markers such as birthmarks, tattoos and scars, and it gives more information on any of their previous convictions. But the most distinguishing feature of this particular record are the mugshots. Now, while most people would not necessarily be pleased to learn that their ancestor was a criminal, it is likely that it is the only opportunity they would ever get to see a picture of them. A gem of the collections is the Perth Theatre Archive, and one of its highlights is the thousands of production photographs starting in 1935. I've chosen this particular production of The Hidden River from 1961 as it shows a young Donald Sutherland. He was signed by then artistic director David Stewart for the grand sum of £8 a week and starred in many productions at the theatre during 1960 and 61. Finally, we have a beautifully executed plan of the estate of Kirkhill at Meagle from 1752. This property belonged to the Honourable J. Stuart Mackenzie of Rose Haw, and the plan was drawn by Thomas Winter. It shows an estate in transition with enclosed fields, plantations, avenues and design gardens around the house. However, we can see hints of an earlier landscape preserved in the field names. There are also some interesting locations marked on the plan, including Belladuff, a little mount where Macduff killed Macbeth after driving him from Dunsinane, and this stone, a place of worship in Ye Druid times. As custodians of these collections, our small team work hard to preserve, promote and provide access to all the records here in the archive. As well as welcoming visitors to the archive, we also provide a remote inquiry service where we can conduct research on behalf of those who cannot physically visit us. In order to raise awareness of our services, we go out into the communities to give talks on the collections and participate in conferences and other events relating to the history of Perth and Kinross. We are generously supported by the Friends of Perth and Kinross Archive, a charitable organisation that was established in 2000 by a group of people interested in the archive and its collections, and many of their members over the years have volunteered with us, helping to catalogue and index collections, create source lists and guides, transcribe documents and oral histories, and assist with collections care. So, I hope that has provided you with a good insight into the Perth and Kinross Archive. You can find all information about our service on the Culture Perth and Kinross website, including information on how you can support us and the Culture Perth and Kinross charity as a whole. Thank you.